John.
Hey, Marty.
How you doing?
Today? I'm doing. People have been asking me how I'm doing, and I've been replying with stellar. It's like, wow. My whole life, I've been told that I need to be good, die, and go to some celestial place that's full of joy. And I'll be damned if I found myself on planet Earth on a celestial body right here. And it's full of joy. It's amazing.
Well, let's talk a little bit about recovery and the experience of recovery.
Oh, okay.
I want to share an experience that I've been having today,
Okay.
and map it along with what you just checked in with.
Okay.
So, as you know, I'm the speaker at my church. I deliver messages on Sundays, and I report to a board of directors who, with whom I have a contract, and my job is to, among other things, it's my job to pick the topics of what we're going to discuss and so forth. So I have a lot of autonomy and a lot of love and support from the board. And every once in a while, I get something from a board member that I allow to trigger me. And that happened today. And I want to talk, first of all, I want to talk about the triggering itself, but I want to also talk about the fact that as we go through this work, all of those experiences that we brought forward into our adult life from our our family of origin, childhood dysfunction are still present.
Yes.
And thinking about the what you said last week about reveling in character defects and so forth, I thought it would be useful to share with people that we're not talking about recovery. I think you kind of implied it a moment ago. Recovery is not some kind of state of, it's not like a drug-free state of ecstasy.
Right.
It's a state of awareness and appreciation and acknowledgement of what is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And willingness to accept what is and surround it with an intention of, for example, I intend to create a world of joy, peace, freedom, and community.
Mm-hmm.
And so that when I have upsets and triggerings, they're happening within this environment that I've created with, along with my higher power of joy, peace, freedom, and community. And what I noticed, for example, today, to make it specific, is that I got an email from one of the board members, and it was cryptic. And so I chose to interpret it as a criticism, even though there are other ways I could have interpreted it, because it was cryptic.
Mm-hmm.
And so here I am, 70 years old. I've been doing this work for 10 years with you. And I've been working on self-awareness and recovery since I was 39. So that's more than 30 years. And still, not only have I had a difficult time shaking this energy, and I'm doing, what do I want? How do I feel? What am I saying about this other person? And doing all the steps. And the energy is still in there in my rib cage or under my rib cage. And it's like, I'm so glad I'm going to be on the podcast today, because this is my humanity. And so I wanted to observe there's nothing wrong. And what often happens in this work is, I know that I do this, and I notice other people do this, like if there's a moment of out of sorts or triggering or whatever, there's still a rush to judgment that something's wrong.
Yeah.
That something's broken, that something needs to be fixed. And I think that's that belief, which is way in the background behind the feeling that's going on, is what keeps me present or what keeps that anxiety energy alive.
Yeah.
Because there's resistance going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking about, an image that might be appropriate for the work that we do. And at first I thought about balance, and I don't like balance because balance is a bit static in my mind. So I thought of a gyroscope. I thought of what we're doing is we're swaying back and forth between family of origin, childhood stuff, and enlightened adult, loving, self-compassionate stuff. And as a gyroscope kind of moves on its axis, it's also moving forward. And so I like that image because I'm moving forward, even though sometimes I sway back into this energy, of the word you used last week. I loved, I'm still attracted to the body chemistry of my family of origin dysfunction. Yep. And so it's kind of like wobbling rather than just balancing like a teeter-totter. It's always in flow because I'm an emotional being. Right. Electrochemical, what is it? Biochemical, electromagnetic body. That's always in flux.
Yes.
And even if my mind thinks that it's having an even keel thought process, my body's going, well, maybe not.
Maybe not. Yeah.
So I'll just stop there and see what you have to say. But that's something I wanted to raise for particularly newcomers. We're not engaged in. We're engaged in changing our whole understanding of what's possible for an adult life of joy and peace and freedom.
Right.
There's something else that, and I didn't know about this until I got here, because all the images that we're presented with really are, heaven, blissed out.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like enlightenment is like some kind of extended heroin high or something.
Right. Yeah. When I first got into recovery, my idea was I wanted everything to be good. I didn't want to struggle. I didn't, because I couldn't. I wasn't able to struggle. I went what I call sideways. Any little thing happened, I was either blowing up or running away. And my idea was I just wanted to be a good person. Well, as I moved through my recovery and have come to the place I'm at now, what I understand is the struggle doesn't go away. My response to the struggle is the term I would use, balance, or that gyro place, where I stay centered in the struggle. And it's like, people ask me, how am I doing? And besides, I'm stellar. One of the things I say is I have both feet firmly planted in the struggle. In other words, I'm now able to be proactive where something happens. I go, that's interesting. Or no, I don't want to do that. I'm responsive instead of reactive. And if I could put it in a simple term, it would simply be the process of going from reactive to proactive. And the world's still full of the same people that were here when I started my recovery that I wanted to get away from. Now I'm participating with everybody wherever they're at. And I'm able to set healthy boundaries. I'm able to say no. And when I set healthy boundaries or say no, I still have feeling about that. I have deep feeling. It's like when my daughters ask me to do something and I'm unable, and I say no, there's disappointment. I feel disappointment, or maybe I try to maybe I'll just, but no, right now it's not possible for me. And then, and I do it in a sympathetic way and a compassionate way towards them and myself. So it's like, that's what I thought. I'd be sitting on a mountaintop in a lotus position, some mudra, and nothing would bother me. Well, no, that's not where I'm at. I got both feet firmly planted in struggle. I'm working, doing the groups on Saturday and my clients, and I work for West Coast Recovery. And I interact with my children and my coworkers and my neighbors. And sometimes it can be messy. And if I get messy or off center, I go to the material that we present, the accountability tree process, the four constants of relationship, to stay steady in my life. It's like when I first started, I didn't know how to ask for what I have. I couldn't describe the state of being that I now am in. And luckily enough, that if I had described it, I would get it. I would have described something that was a lot less alive than what I feel today. Even asking for the first thing I wanted was peace of mind. Well, peace of mind comes with conflict. It's not the absence of conflict. It's seeing conflict as a gift to grow and stay in the conflict, stay in the struggle, instead of running away or hitting it, or doing some kind of violence or something to stop it. I can participate in a proactive way. So, and that is one of the things I said. I want a rich, abundant, full life. It is my intent to live a rich, abundant, full life. Well, I am living that rich, abundant, full life. Only what I thought it was 20, 30 years ago isn't what it is today. And it's rife with emotion and feeling and connection and capacity and opportunities and struggle. The struggle is still there. And when I find myself, what you call triggered, or in an anxiety moment, okay, here it is again. There's something from my childhood that has not been resolved. So what's in front of me right now is now an opportunity for me to heal, instead of what it used to be was, oh, here it is again, that asshole's doing this, or I need to leave, or I need to tell this guy off, or I need to prove my point. All that stuff is gone, and I'm excited about having the opportunity to heal. Now, is that bliss? No, that's uncomfortable. When I find myself like wanting to flip somebody off on the freeway, it's like, oh man, there it is again. And all we're doing is merging. We're not in a combat zone where the guy's
Right.
shooting me. And so, okay, so I'll take a breath and what is this about me that I need to be right about the correct procedure to merge? You know, and I got to teach this guy. No, I don't have to do anything. What I've decided to do was drive defensively, and then let the people do what they want to do. And I don't know what's going on with them. I have no idea. They may have a crisis they got to get to. They may just be unaware, oblivious. I don't know. It's none of my business. My business is to keep me safe. And I remember coming home from a therapy session where we did an EMDR, and for the first time in my life, I felt myself simply enjoying the ride. I wasn't in this time is of the essence mode, get in the right lane, go fastest, be prepared to turn, all these things that I normally would do because I'm an efficient driver, don't you know? I was simply enjoying. It was at night, the lights were on, and I just enjoyed the ride, and it was remarkable. It's just incredible. It's a shift in the state of being. There are the bliss moments. There are the joy-filled moments. There are the moments where I whelm with gratitude and joy. And there's also the moments where I whelm with sadness and maybe irritation or annoyance. And I just notice, oh, okay, there I am again. And I can say today that I have people that love me and it feels good. There's people I love and it feels good. Yeah, I like the analogy or the symbol of the gyroscope. And the gyroscope always like points north. And when my body gets out, it's still pointing north, and I'm like being pulled over here. And if I see the gyroscope as my intent to live a life of peace, then I just simply notice, oh, okay, I'm off kilter a little bit. I'm away from where I say I want to be. So I do something internally to adjust so I can feel that balance, what I call balance and or peace again. And there's another thing about when people hear the word recovery, it infers that there's something defective and I'm moving towards better. And it's reasonable. That's a reasonable assumption. So I like to say that this process of recovery for me has been a process of rediscovery of self, of my original essence energy, of what I came in this world with before I got into my family of origin dysfunction and childhood trauma, which buried me under a brick wall of guardedness and mistrust and hypervigilance, which is every once in a while those will come up, guardedness, hypervigilance. And I have the tools to move through that, see that it is now an opportunity to affect a healing in my subconscious where that trauma resides. And I believe there's more in there. Otherwise I'd be floating off the planet. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know what happens when it's all gone. If I find out, I'll let you know. Or,
I appreciate that.
Yeah. I'll take a flashlight with me so I can see a flickering light up in the sky somewhere. Oh, there goes John. He made it. I don't think that's going to happen too soon. And I really don't want that to happen. I want to be in my life. I want to be with my children, with my friends, with my avocation. I enjoy doing what I do and being who I am. So
one of the things that I noticed as I was ruminating on my experience earlier today is that, and I wanted to conversate with you about this as well, is that I noticed that I was making an assumption I had something to defend.
yes.
That I had to, because I felt, now defensiveness is not a feeling, but I felt like I was reacting. I noticed that I wanted to explain and correct the record as if what was said to me was an attack that I had no choice but to fend off. And you said a few minutes ago with respect to the driving thing, which is a fairly common analogy that we all can understand. It's as if my reaction on the highway is that I have to defend myself. You said defensive driving, but this defense is, in a certain way, it's offensive. It's not. It's an assumption that there's something wrong. There's an assumption that there's something of me that cannot be that cannot be permitted to be threatened.
Right.
And so I was thinking, in the great avatars, Jesus, the Buddha, talked about there is nothing to defend.
Yeah.
And nirvana is essentially the state of all defenses dropped.
Yep.
And heaven in the Jesus language is the sense of utter connection with everything. So there is no outside of me.
Right.
So I have no boundary that needs to be established between me and everything else. No, because I am everything else.
Yeah.
And so it's just a process. There's nothing wrong. I was thinking as you were sharing about when we're born, everyone is born without self-consciousness.
Yep.
Nobody, even Jesus and the Buddha, as little baby boys, came into this world utterly unaware of themselves.
Right.
Except through their emotional experience.
Right.
And eventually, when we get to be 3, 4, 5, we start becoming aware of ourselves. And that's what, like your grandson is going through that shift right now. And then finally, we can actually have a conversation with ourselves or a dialogue with ourselves about our experience. But until that, everything that we go through is something we cannot reflect on. We just don't have the capacity yet.
Right.
And so we're merely reactors. And that's that whole thing in Adultery of Alcoholics. We move from being reactors to being actors. Well, we have to learn how to do this.
Yes.
Because we're born as reactors.
Mm-hmm.
And so
we're born.
We then get trained. Let me just finish my thought, if I might. We then get trained by our family of origin how to act. And again, we have no choice into what we're trained or what we're taught. And so we just glom onto it. So we spend most of our lives still reacting. So I was reacting to this thing that I created by reading and interpreting this little message, this ambiguous message, in the way that I did, because that's how little Marty would have done it.
Yes.
And he would have had no choice but to do it that way. He would never have crossed his mind that this was a really benign or kind statement. It was an attack. Got to defend.
Yeah, I have this saying: when I'm defending myself, I'm participating in my own oppression. And the other thing about your story is, out of all the reasons why this message was sent, your automatic response was defense. In other words, this guy's criticizing me, or I don't know what how you phrased it, and I need to say something. Well, that's what happened to you as a kid. You got told something and you had no options. You just had to take it. And that's
how it feels.
Yes.
It feels like a compulsion.
And the other thing I say is that I used to think that things happen to me, so I need to like say something or make my point or defend myself. And what I see now, the way I frame it now is nothing happens to me, everything happens for me. So when I get triggered or I want to flip somebody off on the freeway, okay, this is happening for me, and the reason I choose for this is to get this trauma out of my body, for me to address the trauma, not the other driver or the county for setting up the lines in the traffic the way they set it up, because for me to address an unhealed aspect of myself, traumatized part of myself, and heal that, so that the next time that happens, I may be startled, I may have a fear response, which is appropriate in a car because you can get hurt. Somebody gets too close to me, I feel fear. There's nothing wrong with the fear response. It's human. It's actually something to keep myself safe, so I don't beat myself for being fear. Before, I wouldn't admit that I was afraid or startled, and I'd go and I'd start projecting onto the other person, asshole, it doesn't care about me, he's got his head up as you know what, and go into this critical mode, actually violent mode, and miss the opportunity to go, oh, that was scary, and just simply understand that I'm a human being, and fear is a intelligent response when something about to happen that is harmful. It's not weak. It's not weak and sissy. It is just part of me taking care of myself. Oh, that was scary. I can say that now. That was frightening. That was almost like tragic right there. I could have got hurt, and then move on, because I've acknowledged the feeling tone without having to criticize myself. You say we're talking about defending ourselves and attacking somebody else, but I do that with self-criticism. I say, well, you're stupid, or you're weak, or no. It's human. It's, in fact, the good thing is we have this ability to respond out of fear in situations that could be harmful. That's a survival technique. That's something that I now revel in, is because I can keep myself safe. I have this response that's really quick inside me, and I can rely on that to keep myself safe.
Well, and the truth is, as you've noted before, we are the beneficiaries of hundreds of thousands of years of evolution to create that mechanism
Yes.
that we now, unlike our mammalian ancestors, we now actually can respond to an emotional experience by suggesting to ourselves, this is happening for me.
Yes.
Whereas that could never have been done till 40,000 years ago, or whenever human intelligence finally started to emerge out of our ancestral background.
Yes.
So evolution has been working really hard to give us these gifts.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. They
And as,
certainly.
and as we've noted before, this work that we're doing is in part a gift to the future.
Right.
Because one of the things that I was thinking of as you were talking earlier about healing, discovering unhealed trauma,
Yeah.
that we welcome these experiences, anxiety, trigger, whatever, because it's an opportunity for us to continue the work of healing.
Yes.
And I was thinking that there's also the challenge, part of our challenge with that is that we haven't talked all that much about this on this podcast, but there is trauma that we inherit by virtue of being human, and not just by virtue of having this particular human experience that you've had or I've had in our 70 odd years on the planet. There's also the species trauma. This is what people like Thomas Hübel and others have been raising. Gabor Mate has also participated in starting to examine the question of the collective trauma.
Yes.
That we all automatically participate in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's tough if I assume that in my recovery, that if I still have things that are unhealed, that there's still something wrong with me. It's
right.
like, well, no, I just may have unhealed stuff because human beings have unhealed stuff.
Right.
And that the healing of the collective is going to take a lot more time, and it's going to take a lot more consciousness on the part of those of us willing to open ourselves to it than my impatient little mind might be willing to understand.
Part of this work I've been realizing when I started my recovery, I had a sphere of concern, and it was limited. It was limited to me, my gun rack, my truck, my property, my family. And it was very narrow. And I didn't care about you guys to do whatever you want, just don't mess with me. And now that sphere of concern has widened to national, global, to where I see this as not just my trauma, but the country's trauma or the planet's trauma. It's like when I can come to the point, and I think this is what the mystics and the people who have evolved or become enlightened, they realize that their enlightenment adds to the capacity for the whole to move there also. I see what Christ did as setting an energy in the matrix that we're now available to. And I wasn't available to that energy or that information in my addiction and in my dysfunction and in my violence, in my narrow sphere of concern. When that sphere of concern widened, I'm now, I'm blessed. It's like, how did I get this information to move from and I want to use the term redneck, and redneck is, I don't know, probably pejorative, to this person who was only concerned with his own stuff, and very limited in capacity for compassion, let's say that, to a person that that affects a positive change in hundreds of people's lives. It's like, I know that when I do this work, it adds to the whole. When I offer this information to the individuals that come to me for relief or insight or clarity, that adds to the whole just a little bit more. And I'm going to continue to do this. Intergenerational transference of this trauma in my mind ends with me, and whatever my line is, I'm moving to some other place. I'm moving to authenticity. And then as I do that, I think it's in Marianne Williamson's poem, Our Biggest Fear, is that when I let my light shine, it gives permission for other people to let their light shine too. And on an energetic level. So I don't know. I'm good. I don't know where I'm going here.
Well, that's the human condition.
That's the human condition.
We don't know where we're going.
and I am real clear that I'm going to continue to be accountable for my part. I am going to heal my part, and as I do that, it gives permission for other people to heal. And it's, my children are feeling safe around me so that they can do their own energetic work. I'm not taking it away from them. I'm not criticizing them for doing it the right way, wrong way. It's their way. And I'm available to them when they're struggling or they think I have something that might ease their pain or bring them some clarity. And I have a rich life. And yeah. So
one of the other insights I've been working with is that fundamentally what I'm doing here is learning unconditional acceptance of the present moment. And I think that the key to this work, for me, I love your thoughts, but the key for me is to really drop resistance and learn embrace. It doesn't mean, like you said, it doesn't mean there won't be suffering, there won't be pain. It doesn't mean there won't be bewilderment, because I have a human brain, and that's how the mind works. And the mind's going to work. I'm not here to change my mind. I mean, I might change my thoughts, but I'm not going to change the way my mind works. I don't have that power. So there it is. So part of it is learning to say, as you were saying a moment ago, that my mind works for me, not to me.
right.
And to learn to accept that my mind's going to say stuff that can trigger emotional fear, grief, whatever, and that's just what happens. And that I am not my thoughts, I am not my behaviors, I'm not even my mind.
Right.
I have a mind, I have a body, I have behaviors, I have thoughts, but that's not who I am. And so that can only, for me, work is if I'm willing to accept that this is the way things are for me.
Yeah.
And then the beautiful, practical, working statement that you taught me is to give myself permission. I give myself, so today, the best I could do is I give myself permission to feel triggered. I give myself permission to feel defensive. And I hold value as a human being. I'm a human being. This is part of the deal. And that began to move the gyroscope, sway it back.
Right.
Back into that feeling of relief that comes when I accept the truth. That's the heart of the accountability tree, is to state what's true, what's really going on for me in this moment, to state the truth of it as best I can. And if I can't do it, ask for help. And be willing to say, okay, the truth is I hate having to deal with these people. I hate receiving these emails. I don't want to do any of this work. I'm not competent, whatever. And then be able to go to the feeling, okay, what happens when I tell myself that? What do I feel? Without making any of it wrong.
Right.
And then once I get there, then I can ask myself what I want. Do I really want this? Do I want something else? If I want something else, what is it? And then set the intention.
One of my, I'm working at West Coast this morning, and I'm sitting here at West Coast, And one of my young clients came up this morning and I said, "How you doing?" And he goes, I'm irritable." And I went, "Yahoo!" And he looked at me like, What do you mean?" And I go, Yes, you're irritable. Look where you're at. Yes, this is irritating. You got to come in here, and all your friends are out there living their lives, and you got to come in here every day and talk about you. That's irritating. So yeah, you're in your life. So now what do you want? It's like people say they want to be present in the moment. Well, I support that. No, you don't, because where you're at is irritating, agitating, otherwise annoying. And for you to simply realize that, I remember sitting in a meeting several times, this happened a lot, where I was irritated that I had to be there and all my friends were out doing whatever they were doing, which seemed like better to me than what I was doing. And I simply allowed myself to say that, and I sat. I didn't move. I kept coming back, and I kept feeling the irritation. And it's like, you know what? Yeah, I'm irritated. What happened to me as a child to motivate me to go someplace where I take myself out of what I thought was my life into a place where I'm not sure what's going on. It is confusing, it's irritating, and it's okay. It's okay to feel that. Now I know where I'm at, so I can ask for something different. If I went into a reaction response, which is some type of emotional or verbal violence, I would have missed the opportunity to notice that this is irritating, and then to make a choice. Okay, what is it I want? I want whatever it is these people are talking about. So I'm going to stay, and I'm irritated, and it's okay. It's okay to feel. One of the four constants is move towards your pain. Another way to say that is move towards your discomfort. Um, Move towards whatever's happening to you in your life, and just be with yourself. See, that didn't happen to me as a child. I was frustrated, maybe angry, maybe irritated as a child with something, and I'd get screamed at or chastised or told to be good, be a good boy, quit making so much noise. And I wasn't able to move through my own irritation on my own to learn that that's part of me being me. And so I didn't want to be irritated. If I was irritated, there's something wrong with me. Now I understand, if I'm irritated and the situation I'm in is irritating, I'm in the present moment. I'm present with what's going on. It's like, what the heck is that? So,
But it's the willingness. I mean, I love the story. That gentleman was willing to be
yes,
present with and testify,
yes.
to speak, to own in our
Right.
language. He was willing to own, this is what I'm feeling. I'm feeling irritated.
Yeah, the three rules in a dysfunctional home is don't talk, don't trust, don't feel. So he broke one of the rules by saying the truth about where he was at. That is healing. Just simply to be able to express, I'm angry, I'm irritated, without somebody telling you you're wrong.
Well, he
Or
may also have been trusting, because he may have been trusting that you wouldn't tell him that, you shouldn't say that, or
right,
what's wrong with you?
exactly. Yeah, and he's learning to trust himself in articulating with what's going on with him, and he has that experience, which is now part of who he is, and he takes that to the next day, maybe even to the next moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, this human thing can be fun.
yeah, it can be hella irritating too. uh, and that's if I say I want to be in the present moment and I'm in a crisis situation, and I'm feeling bliss, I'm not in the present moment. If I'm not attuned to what's happening around me, and maybe even on alert, or um, cautious, or then I'm not in the present moment. I'm in a moment I say I want to be, which is here and now. Um, Eckhart Tolle said in, I think, his book, The New Earth, uh, people rail against reality, and he used an example of being in a traffic jam. and they'll be in a traffic jam and they'll scream and cuss and rail against reality. Well, okay. I mean, no, I'm in a traffic jam. Am I feeling a sense of urgency? Yeah, I'm feeling a sense of urgency because I got to be someplace at a certain time and the traffic is slow. So now I say, oh, I'm in a traffic jam. Okay, I'll deal with being late when I get there instead of beating on my windshield or honking my horn or trying to move in and out of traffic so I can like stay even with everybody else. It's like I'm peaceful in the irritation, in the feeling of constriction, which is slow traffic. In fact, I can now look around at the scenery where I don't get a chance to when I'm driving 65, 70 miles an hour.
Yeah, it's funny. Again, this traffic thing is fairly universal in our culture.
Yeah.
So I had I had a similar experience. I was on the freeway this morning coming back from a doctor's appointment, and I came up to brake lights on a part of the freeway where I wouldn't normally experience brake lights. And I just kind of had that reaction. I'm going to brake here and slow down, and I'm going to adjust to a different speed here on the freeway. I was doing 70. Now I'm going to be doing 30. Oh, okay. I wonder what's going on. And whereas before I would have had that, like you were saying, thumbing on the wheel, feeling that adrenaline kind of thing. And what I find now, this would be interesting if we could test this scientifically. What I find is the traffic seems to go faster when I accept that it's going slow.
Yeah, I wish there was a way to test that scientifically. It's like I think what I would describe that as is I've shifted my state of being to being frantic or frenetic to accepting.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that principle applies to everything in our lives, not just the freeway.
Not just the freeway.
So if this morning I had been able to just adjust consciously to the message, say, oh, look, I'm interpreting this negatively. Okay. Wow. Okay. Take a breath and say, okay, what do I want here?
Yep.
So that I'm suggesting to us that the practice of the accountability principle, the tree, is universally applicable to everything in our lives.
Yeah.
Because as humans, we're subject to just a handful of really basic emotions. I think you've identified 8. Different people identify different varieties of them, but no matter how many you suggest we have, they're all limited. There's just not that many.
And in those 8 basics, there's a continuum where we can feel an infinite number of different combinations of those. Maybe anger is the predominant one at the moment, but it could be, this one could have sadness in it, could be, or a next one could have excitement in it. It's like, my experience is I don't feel one emotion ever at us by itself. It's always mixed. I call it a constellation. There is a theme, like happy. I know when I'm happy. Angry, and then is it mixed with fear? Is it mixed with excitement? Is it mixed with hurt, sadness? It's like it's a constellation of feeling, and we for us to be able to talk to each other, we do the best we can with the language and the words that we have. Yeah.
Well, my point was that we can appreciate that there's this kaleidoscope of emotions that may have these different expressions, but there's still just a handful of them.
Yes.
They sometimes seem infinite because they're always changing. just like a
Yeah.
kaleidoscope. When you're, there's only a handful of colored things in there, and there's only 4 or 5 colors,
Right.
and there's only 3 mirrors, but you keep turning it, and it's just always a different pattern, always. And you
Well,
never go back to the original one. So
right.
my point is about acceptance, is if I'm willing to, no, as I'm willing to accept that I'm always going to be in an emotional state of some kind,
Yeah.
then perhaps I can experience them neutrally rather than being caught up in them.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
And
See,
again,
that's my,
that's what
yeah,
I noticed this morning, is I was, not only was I caught up in this feeling, it's like I had to be honest and say, I guess I want to be caught up in this because I'm not shaking it.
right.
So again, I give myself permission to be agitated. And what do I want? Oh, I want peace and ease. I intend to feel peace and ease. And
You know,
now it's like you were saying earlier, now my relationship to it has shifted. It's still there, just like the traffic jam. It's still there,
yes.
but my relationship with it, I have changed it, or God, my higher power, and I have changed it. And every time there's shift, there's, as you've said, there's information now being imparted into my subconscious.
Yeah.
That reifies the possibility of shift the next time. And one of the ways
And
that I noticed this early on is that the time it takes for me to become aware that I'm stuck in an emotional, a repeat emotional pattern diminishes over time, to where sometimes I notice it as it's happening.
yeah.
And for me, that's evidence that the process is working, in the sense that it is bringing me to be present with my actual moment-to-moment experience, even when it's unpleasant or it
Right.
hurts.
Right. Instead of the reaction response, there's a breath and, oh, okay, this is the way it is. Okay.
Right.
And then it's like in the 12 steps, they talk about it being moving from reactor to actor. Happens, oh, there's a space in the between the input or the emotion or the information and then the response to it or the reaction to it. So and that's what I've been able to do, is put that space in there to where I can um, um, make a choice. What, something that happened to me that's an example of how this works is, again, traffic, and I'm in a fast lane at an intersection, and I'm in, somebody starts to pull into what I thought was the slow lane, and I would just keep going, and I would pass them up. Well, they didn't see me, and they actually pulled into my lane. And my reaction response, my reticular activating system survival mechanism, acted instantly. I just moved my wheel just a little bit, and I don't know how I missed him. He was probably moved back the other way. And then when I looked in the mirror, my thought was of concern for their well-being. There wasn't this, oh, you asshole, you dumbass, this reaction that I would normally, a violent reaction. I actually was concerned for them, to make sure that they were okay, which is different for me. It's like I've been working real hard, and then I find myself in an event where this being accountable, owning my projections, owning my defensiveness, put me in a situation where I was actually concerned for the other person, where before I always saw them as trying to hurt me, or I'd have taken it personal, or all the other things that we do. So that was that felt good after the fact, to feel myself in this different place of concern and compassion, and not aggression or violence. Wow. Yeah.
Wouldn't you also say that that's evidence of how our worlds expand?
Yes.
So before, it's like all I care about is my own safety.
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh, wait a minute, we're kind of all in this together here on this highway. This person, for whatever reason, didn't see me, and you know, um, it's
Yeah.
great that nothing happened to any of us.
Mhm. And I'm what do you call it? Grateful to that mechanism inside me, fight, flight, freeze, because it responded quicker than I could think to avoid the contact. So that mechanism is, I'm grateful for it. It's not running me. It's not where I stay in this adrenaline rush, um, reaction, fight, flight, freeze, please mode. And I'm lucid. I still had the startle response. My hand moved before I could make a judgment. It just so quick, it was over. And then I'm in this concern place, this place of compassion for the people that almost hit me, because they would have been hurt as much as I might have gotten hurt. And I could see that they may have been shook up as much as I was shook up or startled. And so, yeah. Wow. Wow.
We know in 8 days it's going to be Christmas,
Mm,
and in my church, in the Unity Church, is similar to most of the Christian churches, that we've been celebrating Advent. So Advent is, for those of you who don't know, that's basically the 4 weeks before Christmas. And each Sunday of Advent, we celebrate a powerful gift that Christmas, which for us represents the awakening of this consciousness that we are part of this divine, infinite flow
mhm.
of reality. We have these gifts, and the first Sunday of Advent, we celebrated faith and hope. And then the second Sunday, we celebrated the gift of peace.
Mm,
And last week, we celebrated the gift of love. And then this weekend, we celebrate the gift of joy.
wow.
And these are all manifestations of this awakening consciousness that we've been discussing here for the past hour.
Mhm.
And that when I'm willing to affirm that life happens for me, not to me, then I have access to faith, hope, love, peace, and joy as my constant companions, not just something that happens once a year on Christmas.
Right.
That the symbol of the Christ, which is metaphorically just means the awakened consciousness, the consciousness of this divine, infinite, unitary experience that's available to all.
Mhm.
That this is what we're working on, if we were to put it in religious or Christian terms anyway. And
Mhm.
we could translate this into the terms of other world religions as well, all of which have a mystical tradition. And the mystical tradition is simply, again, about the awakening to the singularity that all existence is. If we were willing to see all of existence as one thing, rather than a multiplicity of separate things,
Right.
then what I'm working on is awakening to experiencing the truth of that in this, and I can only do that in the present moment.
Right.
So as we approach Christmas, we do a lot of reflecting on these gifts,
Mhm.
and that we recognize these gifts come because we choose to open ourselves to those experiences. We choose to say yes.
Yes.
We choose to take the risk of moving out of our defenses that I was talking about earlier. I felt like I have something to defend. Willingness to move out of that defensiveness and open myself to something far greater, or that appears to be far greater than me. It turns out it's just me in a different form, or I'm it in this form.
Yeah.
Chicken and egg, we can have that discussion. But I just wanted to acknowledge, as we come up on this Christmas season, that the work that we're doing here is opening ourselves to these fundamental, beautiful, powerful human gifts:
Yeah.
faith, hope, peace, love, joy.
Yes. Compassion, harmony. Those are acceptance. Yes.
Yeah.
and then participating in a proactive way, not only for my benefit, but I've discovered that if what's healthy for me, the choice that's healthy for me, it is the choice that's healthy for all the people around me. So I pay attention. I'm aware of what I'm doing because I know it has an impact. I know my alcoholism and my violence had an impact on the people around me. Well, I still have an impact, and it is my intent that that impact be one of acceptance, harmony, and unconditional love, compassion, to remove the conditions of "I love you."
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's also what I experience when we spend an hour together every week doing this dialogue.
Yeah.
I get to learn about myself by learning about you and
Mhm.
sharing and dialoguing, and I'm very grateful.
I'm grateful too, Marty. Thank you.
So as we come up to the last couple of minutes here, as always, leave the last word with you, Mr. Donovan.
Last word with me. Well, I'm grateful for being graced with my experience and my capacity to disseminate this to other human beings in a way that's receivable and safe for them to explore themselves. So, yeah, cool.
I know I just said you get the last word, but now I'm going to take it back and say
Okay.
that for me, that the gift is not only in sharing that, but in that communion with others in the group work.
Yeah.
Where my healing takes place when I'm willing to open myself to the group. I'm willing to tell the group that which I don't want to tell, and receive that unconditional love and acceptance that my little kid doesn't think is possible.
Right.
But my higher self guides me to be willing to open and get that healing from the group, which is just a bunch of human beings being human together.
Yep. Yeah. Very good. Thank you, Marty.
Well, thank you, John. And I look forward to our conversation next week with our guest. And before we close, as always, I'd like to remind everybody that we do have groups that meet on a regular basis, a weekly basis on Zoom, Monday nights, Thursday nights at 6:30, Tuesdays at 4, and Saturday mornings at 8:30. And contact information for me or John or our colleague Ruben will be on the card at the end of the podcast. Feel free to contact any of us, and we'll be happy to direct you to the Zoom address for any of the meetings that you might be interested in participating in. We'd love to have you come and ask questions, share your experience, or just witness other people doing the work.
Yeah.
So please feel free to check us out.
Yeah.
All right, Brother John, have a great
Marty.
weekend, and I will talk to you next week.
You got it, Marty.